All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Dr. Will Show, and I have the honor of guest hosting the Dr. Will Show today. And I am joined with three fantastically awesome educators with me today. The topic for today's show is not really a topic. It's kind of, I've called it Power to the People. So what's going to happen today is that each of us have created our own question that we feel connected to, and we'll each ask the question. So even though I am the guest host, I'm not going to be always asking the question. So hopefully we'll have some really great discussion, and we are really glad that you joined today. So I'll take a second to introduce myself, and then we'll go, and everyone else will introduce them as well. So I am Carlie Stigler. Like I said, I am a third, fourth, and fifth multi-age teacher in STEM Academy, Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. So Katie, you want to introduce yourself next?
Yes, I'm Katie Kajowski. I teach 6th, 7th, and 8th grade multi-age, also in Fond du Lac at the STEM Institute.
Anna, you want to introduce next?
Sure. I'm Anna Zenfenig. I'm a special ed teacher, 2nd, 3rd, multi-age at Hawthorne in Waukesha, Wisconsin.
And Melissa.
I am Melissa Paulson. I am a 2nd and 3rd grade teacher at Waukesha STEM Academy.
Awesome. Thank you so much, you guys. All right, so let's get started with question one. Hopefully this makes sense. The question I have is, how do you utilize community as your behavior management system? So we know like the classic rewards, punishments, all of those things which are typically used, but how do you kind of incorporate or kind of solely depend on community to kind of capture and really reduce kind of some of those unwanted behaviors and kind of bring out those expected choices we would expect in our classrooms?
I think with my class, what I try to do with them at points is when something is going not the way it's supposed to, as a class, we'll just like stop what we're doing, get in a community circle, and talk about it. So I'll kind of point out what I'm seeing, and then the other kids will add to the topic, and we'll talk about ways that it can be changed or what other different things we can do.
And I'd say from my standpoint, especially because I'm special ed, so I'm not working with a gigantic group of kids, like 20-some kids, like Melissa, Carlie, and you and Katie are. So like what I utilize is community, but in such a smaller sense where I am trying to build a relationship with each individual student. Not that you guys aren't, but I mean, with having I only have 7 kids on my caseload, so I can really focus on that, and then I use that as a tool to enhance my instruction, enhance what they need, because I can have this close relationship and really know why these behaviors are popping up, because they're, maybe they're dysregulated, what's dysregulating them. I can figure it out and then use that as my tool to teach expected behaviors or reflect with them. And I think a big piece of building community as a management tool is that trust piece. Students have to trust you, and you have to trust them. So, I mean, the old school philosophy is like your students should respect you versus this trust or like you're the authority figure. So I think just having a community where you have that mutual trust, learning can really happen because it's a safe spot. It's someplace students feel safe to even talk about what unexpected behaviors are happening and why they're happening and how they can change that and reflect as a group of learners. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yes. I think similar to Melissa and Anna, so one thing that all of our classrooms did at the beginning of the year is we designed like a diagram of what a healthy and successful community circle looks like, just as like a visual representation of what we expect of each other and what would be unexpected and inappropriate. And so that I mean, the whole thing's just been a learning experience. Like there are so many, it just sounds like very great and ideal and didn't get executed as well as, I would have liked the first year, but ideally, like the kids would have an awareness of what they know works well for them and what works well for the group, and then would share that out. And then, like what you said, Melissa, often when we had like issues or things weren't going well in the classroom, we'd bring it back to the group and say, okay, so here's our problem, like what are you going to do? And when kids would come forward with issues, instead of coddling them and telling them how to solve their problem, like first giving them the option of like, so how could you solve it, or what do you want to see happen, and then guiding them through it, like if they don't have an articulate answer, but helping them process and think through like what does make the most sense for me right now and for the people around me. And in the middle school, we had just a lot of conversations focused around self-awareness, just because it's such a bizarre age group and their brains are just wired in a very egocentric way. So we did spend a lot of time like talking about, this is how your choices impact other people, and this is how you make other people feel when you do this, and you know, trying to instill that as a priority for them, which doesn't necessarily come naturally. So, yeah.
I think when we think about community, or even if you're implementing the behavior modification stuff where it's the reward system, or you have a big set consequence where you write the kid's name on the board and then you check it off, and then 3 checks means you go to the office or whatever. Like that system, that behavior system, is you implement it at the beginning of the year and then you just try to do it throughout the year. But most of the time you forget about it, it gets lost in translation, and it doesn't work. But with community, there's so many pieces to community. So it's an ongoing process. You can't just implement it at the beginning of the year and expect your community to be this full thriving thing by the end of the year, because you did a couple community builders. Oh, you did some name games. Now everyone knows each other's names. It's not that. Like Katie said, it's that self-awareness piece. It's Melissa's reflecting with her students consistently. It's getting to know them on an individual level. It's really building those learner traits and those people skills, because community is not going to work unless kids can communicate what they're feeling and what's happening, and being aware of those expected and unexpected behaviors to be reflective and have an open discussion with the class. So I don't know. I think when we talk about community in like school settings and even in like your educational program, it sounds all great and fun. Oh, we'll do some community builders here and there, but there's so much that goes into it, and it is a timely process that, I mean, it's not like a one and done thing. So I guess that's what I'm trying to get at. It's something that has to be ongoing, and you have to go slow at the beginning of the year and really get to know all your students and have them get to know each other and really build that reflection and that communication and those self-awareness and self-determination, self-advocacy skills, and keep reflecting on it and growing through the year so that your community can thrive and you see less and less of those unexpected behaviors.
I think one thing, though, that also, adding on to yours, Anna, that gets lost is we're doing these brain breaks because we feel like the kids need a break, but we're also doing these brain breaks because to add to that community. But I feel like one thing that gets lost is the reflection piece at the end. Like, why are we doing this? And then the kids are just like, oh, we're just taking a break. It's just time to, you know, kind of goof around. But really, we're doing it, one, to give them a break, but two, to also allow them to get to know each other and really work together as a community. And I know that's one thing that I forget all the time, is to reflect with them at the end. Like, why are we doing this? What is it used for? To really get them to think as a community piece together.
Yeah, and that has to be like a habit. Like, I mean, it's our first year, so things aren't a habit yet, but it has to be like a habit in the classroom to really process, why do we do community builders? Why do we take breaks? And what does that mean as on the level of friendship or as community? But I mean, and when I think about school, and like my school at least, I feel like everything runs so much on the clock, and like we lose what's really important because we have to get math testing done. We have to do Badger exam now, and here's PALS, and oh, did you finish this standard? So like those that piece gets so lost in translation, and it is so sad to me because so many kids really need these skills, and these are the skills that are going to help them in their future. And even, I mean, I don't know, it's just, it will help them in such a bigger sense, a larger scope in their life than really doing anything in literacy or anything in math. Not that those aren't important, but being able to communicate and talk about what you're thinking and what you're feeling will really build those literacy skills and being able to communicate what you're thinking about in a book and what you're thinking of how you're problem solving in math. But because those aren't seen as like skills that we can test, or I don't know, they're just not as important on a larger scale in our society as they should be. And I don't think we can blame teachers necessarily for that, because it is so, we have to get all this stuff done and it runs by the clock and we only have 9 months of school, and it's just sad to me. And that community really should be something that is nurtured in all schools and in a larger scale.
Awesome. Great conversations, you guys. That was a good time. All right. Number 2. Anna, you want to ask your question?
Yes. Okay, so I wrote this question after we did a Twitter chat. I was kind of feeling, I mean, let me ask the question and then I think you'll know what I was feeling at the time. So, do you feel as passionate, optimistic, and or driven to be an advocate for change within the field as you did a year ago? So if yes, please explain how you maintain that frame of mind, which is some advice I could really use. And then if no, elaborate on the experiences that altered your motivation. Do you want me to read it again?
No.
Or you think?
No, I'm reading it also.
Okay. Whoever wants to go first.
Okay, so no, I don't feel as optimistic, I'm just to be honest. I do feel more optimistic as of the 4th, though, June 4th, than I did like the last 3 months of school. We got a chance to like work with we got a chance to work with our consultant on so our last day was the 3rd. We got a chance to work with our consultant on the 4th, and the whole, I don't know, there was like a time of school like where I was just like hating everything, and then I just kind of decided to not care, like just kind of do, go with the flow and do what others wanted me to do and smile and nod and all those nice pleasantries. And it actually worked. So like it sounds really terrible, but it's something that like I needed to help me get through like those last few months of school and like still like enjoy some parts. But I guess I didn't realize like how much of a toll it was taking on me until like the last week of school, where I was just like hating everything, like just didn't want to be here, like it was just so like over everything. And like the last day of school, like I didn't feel like any sad emotions, which like normal people probably would feel. So then that was just like a weird realization in and of itself, and I was just like so grumpy, like I was just very weird. And then I don't know, we just got a chance to talk with our consultant like as a team and think about like reflect on the whole year, and we did some different like processing activities which were really super helpful to me. So I think just the idea of like talking things out and was helpful, which I guess I wasn't doing, so I was just going with the flow. So I mean, I don't feel as optimistic as I did when I started the year or like last year during our residency, but I still have, I mean, some optimism. I have different thinking now, which I think will help me with like as I move forward in education or wherever. So, yeah, I guess like to maintain it would be just to keep having conversations with people and keep sharing how you're thinking, whether it's in like a larger setting or whether it's one-on-one with like your team, like someone from your team, or whether it's like just through other like friends like us or something, just continuing to have conversations so it's not like bottled up and you just hate the world like I did.
Yeah, I agree with Carlie, like not as much optimism, but I think I ended the year just looking at the whole thing differently, like just having a different frame of mind. Like now that we've actually like lived through the system and done everything and all the extra stuff, like I just have a different frame of reference as to what's actually going on and like what it's actually like. I mean, I'm still, I don't know, it's a weird thing. Like, I feel like if I look at it, like if I step back and like look at the situation, I'm excited about what we do and like what can be done and like the potential that we have in like our various positions, because each of us are in like a like unique, no one's in like a completely traditional setting, so like all of us are in a cool spot. But like when I think about it then in like, I don't know, what is it, more narrowly, like in my position, like it's just very, like Carlie said, it's very taxing. It took a huge toll. I don't know if like where I'm located now is where all of the great change happens. Like I don't know, like there's so many components of things that need to be done and extra stuff and things that get in the way, and like, you know, parents this and meetings this and portfolios and tests and yada yada, and like it's I just don't know how to like make it all happen, like, and like Carlie said too, like at some point you just kind of like, I think at some point I, maybe not so tragically as Carlie, but kind of just like hit cruise control and like, you know, went with the flow for a while. Like it's just easier to like go through the routine than to, you know, try to make a stir about everything and voice my opinion about everything. And I mean, I also agree that those conversations were very like redeeming, and it was nice to hear like from the people on my team that they still struggle. Like they've been in the profession for 10 years and they still have days where they think about their job alternatives and how they want out, and like, so I don't know if that's promising or worrisome that they still struggle 10 years from now, but still, I mean, I don't know what the answer is to maintain the motivation, because I definitely lost momentum as well. But I mean, I signed a contract for next year, so I'm going back. So I must still be excited enough to try again.
I think the biggest thing for me is that you go into the school year having this philosophy, and you get told you're supposed to do it this way, you have to do these things, and you just try to fit your philosophy in it. So I think with that, my optimism kind of got pushed down a little bit, just because you have all these ideas and right away you're told that you have to do it in a different way. So I think through that, like really trying to find my voice throughout the school year and being like, well, what about this, and opening doors to different ways. I think though, like reflecting on the year and thinking about what did happen and seeing some good things, still passionate about it and still wanting to do it, and thinking about next year, like what can be done differently, and reflecting over the summer. But it definitely got pushed down a little bit this year, just like you're a first year teacher. This is how you're supposed to be doing it. Why aren't you doing it this way? And just kind of showing the voice of how my philosophy is.
Yeah. I feel now that you guys have said everything, I feel like from this year, well, obviously from my question, I definitely lost motivation, passion, the drive, all that. And I was definitely on, and still am a little bit on cruise control this year. But I feel like from the experiences, it kind of emphasized my philosophy in a way, like just based on what kids need and really experiencing what they need, and that's not happening. So that does motivate me in a way to try to do it. But I feel like when I look back on the year when I did things that, like going to the conferences with Carlie, the unconferences, and then doing the podcast before, like things on such a larger scale where I feel like I'm reaching somebody and somebody else is kind of thinking what I'm thinking in a different education setting, in a different state or whatever, that kind of gives me the passion back to know that other people are fighting the same fight, and that that there's hope, I guess, in a way. So I don't know. That's one way I guess I tried realizing how I maintained, I guess, that frame of mind to be that advocate for change. But I'd say the majority of the time, because you're doing things so day to day, and it's very draining, that like the motivation really and the passion and the optimism really kind of falls away, and then you're just doing what you're told, like Melissa was describing.
Yeah, and to kind of add on to what you guys were saying, I think one of my biggest annoyances is like people who are like, "Oh, you're thinking, or like you're so idealistic or so hopeful and like in your philosophy." And to me, when people say that, it's like a thing that actually can't happen. It's just thinking. It's not something that can actually happen in reality. And then so then think like, well, then what's the purpose of even having a philosophy if it's idealistic? Like I don't like I really really hate that, 'cause I think that just spreads the message that it's great thinking and it's really awesome, but it actually can't happen. So when you're in reality, you have to do all of these things that go against your philosophy. So I think that's another thing that kind of brought me down, but now I just need to like think of ways to like help people understand like no, it can actually happen. We just need to figure out how to do it.
Mm-hmm. And I think we all agree that like reflecting together and like opportunities where we're able to connect with other people on a more broad scale about like the things that we're passionate about and like making change, and then that's just so separate from the day-to-day routine. Like there is, I mean, currently it feels like there's no place for that there. Like you are, like when I reflect with my team, like it's just, even that is like still a little bit more local, but it still just feels very separated from like, okay, so what do I have to do 30 minutes from now when I have to be back in the classroom kind of thing. And so I think that's also challenging, is that, like you said, Carlie, like we get called out for being unrealistic and like that kind of thing, but then like how do we make it realistic? Like where does it tie together? Like how do you maintain those opportunities next year to reflect, but make it relevant and applicable, so it's not just like wishful thinking and like blowing off steam for our sanity. Like, and at some point it has to become practical or practice, whatever.
I think that makes me so sad too, to have somebody tell another teacher, like a teacher, somebody in the field tell you that that's too idealistic, that you can't do that. Because if they're telling an adult that about their own field, what are they telling kids, and how are they crushing their spirits? Like, it's all about our choice words and how we say things to others, and that I feel like that's part of the reason like you lose that optimism and that faith in education to create change, is because of all these other people and the talk, how they present it to you in a way that does kind of crush your spirit. And then on top of it, we have districts telling us we have to do it this way, or principals or whoever's telling you have to do it this way on this timeline. Yeah, I don't know. It stinks.
Mm-hmm.
Well, on that note, let's go to question number 3.
All right. Yay.
We're so positive this morning. This is really
Sorry, guys.
We need to find something positive to think about. I mean, here we are talking about like how crappy life is. It's not that crappy. I don't know.
Here.
All right, Katie K, take it away.
All right. So this is, I think I was inspired off of Anna's question because I didn't know what to ask last night. So here this is. So at the beginning of the year, it seemed exciting and easy to take like our philosophy into the classroom and practice it in real life. But I think we all agree that that quickly changed and is not actually how it works. It's not that easy. So looking back at the year and being more specific, like what is one thing, first of all, that you wish you had stuck to that you kind of let go, and then being proactive about it? What is one thing that next year you're going to make sure right from the start that you do, or like don't forget to do or remember, if that makes sense? So like thinking like about my situation and kind of connecting to something Melissa said earlier, I probably didn't, like with establishing a community in our classroom, or my classroom, I didn't, I think, make it as much of a top priority as I should have in terms of behavior management. Like I think I got really, as the teacher, got wrapped up in the academics and teaching the project process and deadlines and papers and yada yada and all that boring stuff. So making that a priority and teaching kids that is a priority, especially with processing after anything and everything, to help them find meaning in what we do and that kind of stuff. So that's something that I wish I had done, that I neglected. And yeah, to start the year, I think that is going to be a priority of mine. Also, on a more of an academic scale, I didn't conference with my kids as well and as consistently as I would have liked to, which is not a good thing since that's a very vital part of our project process. But just giving my kids relevant and real and timely feedback on their work, I think would overall make the whole process flow better. So lots of things that I need to work on.
I kind of said this earlier, but I feel like the thing that I lost the most is just the reflection piece altogether. I think when kids were having some behavior issues, that's when I brought the reflection piece out, but it was really the only time. So in that frustration itself, you did this great PBL project, but they didn't really reflect on it. So I'm just basically, I did my project, I presented it, now we're done. So I think that's one thing I want to really implement next year, is just reflecting in all pieces of the classroom, not just with behavior in that sense. I think also you said with conferencing, I found it so hard to conference with kids one-on-one, especially with reading, just because it took so long. You really wanted to give them next steps, and I felt like I wasn't getting to barely anybody. Mm-hmm. So that's just one thing that I hope to help change next year.
For me, I think looking back on last year, it took me such a long time to figure out how things are done, what do we do, and what does workshop look like, and how is project time done, and how do kids go about filling out a project form. I don't looking back, it took me so long to figure out those things. I think the last month I was oh, now I kind of get it. And 8 later, and I'm what? And if I'm the teacher, that's probably a bad thing it took me that long to get it. But yeah, so I think now going into next year, I know kind of the system of our school and how things are done, I can be so much more helpful to students. I could actually do my job, possibly. So I'm excited for that. I think also going on with Katie said, conferencing with kids, I felt first of all, just figuring out where kids are at within their projects, and then helping them, because we have a time for in about 2 weeks you should be started and finished with a project and starting your new one. So knowing that was kind of our timeline, helping kids stick to their deadlines, and then figuring out where they're at within their project. Through talking with my team, we figured out a couple of different ways to work on that. But I felt every time I would sit down with them, it was all right, you're at the experimentation phase. What are you doing? How much longer do you need? When are you moving on? All right, done. Go to the next kid. All right, you're in your notes. Well, how many notes do you have? What questions do you have? Your questions don't even match your standards. You need to change this and this, and then move on. I just felt I had to go so fast, and I could never keep up. And then I wasn't even having conversations about what are you learning about? Are you enjoying your topic? What strategies are you using to make sure you're staying? It wasn't any of those. It was just where are you at? Did you do this? All right, next student. And it was not fun for me at all. And I don't know, maybe it was fun for the kids, but it wasn't a thing that we were doing to do something, to meet something, and then you just starting over this process again. So I hope next year I can make it a more enjoyable time instead of a anxiety time for me. I hope maybe I hope I didn't translate to the kids, but for me, I felt I was just not doing the best I could to help kids enjoy learning, which is one of the whole purposes of doing project-based learning, is that it's more enjoyable, it's more applicable, it makes more sense, so they can have a deeper sense of understanding. But if it's an anxiety-driven time, or I feel rushed, then those things aren't going to happen. So yeah.
I would agree with Carlie. I felt, at least with my instructional pieces of it, the purpose. Like I was just going so day to day that like I lost the purpose and trying to make it applicable to the kids and using their background knowledge and how to really individualize it or even personalize it for them, and have them as uh, that collaboration piece with the kids on their own learning. I mean, I think this next year, what I'm already starting with another teacher, so like is a more individualized piece looking at kids learning, for specifically for our special ed kids, so that they are more a part of the general ed population and kind of flowing with them. So that's one thing we're going to be working on together, is how to really individualize their learning and make it applicable to them specifically, yet still having them be connected with their curriculum and the general ed population. But also for me, I feel like collaboration, I had, maybe it was because I had such a late start or what, I don't know, and just be feeling like I've been behind all year. That I really want, that would be my big focus this next year, is really collaborating, not only with the other special ed teacher, where we'll be working towards really trying to do more inclusive curriculums for our kids, but really collaborating with my team, the team I'm supposed to be collaborating with more often, and really just making sure that, I mean, really enforcing it, I guess, lack of a better term, to make sure that we are meeting our kids' needs and that they're not just my kids. And then, I don't know, just still building those relationships with the students. I'm ranting now. I lost my train of thought. I can see Carlie laughing at me. I like started out as a rant, but I don't know. There's so much I would want to do this next year, but like we talked about the last podcast, is you really just have to chip away at your philosophy step by step, just to keep going and really, really like practice it and make it that theory you have into practice. So like this past year, I really didn't want to do any behavior modification, which I was able to maintain, woohoo, mostly.
Good.
And then just, yeah, so I hope this next year just be that collaboration piece with other teachers. I really want that to happen more, because I feel like that's really what is key to inclusion for these students, and really just for myself as a professional. And it will only be my second year. I'm still trying to figure things out, like, and I don't want to just be on cruise control. I want to be an active member in the classroom with all students as well. So, yeah. Sorry for the rant.
That's okay.
We can post it at the end.
Did everybody answer that question?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Melissa, your question.
So mine is more literacy, with being specializing in literacy, thinking more about what are some ways to utilize voice and choice in literacy, but also meeting the needs of struggling readers. I feel like it's really easy to give voice and choice to kids that are doing just fine. They're where they're supposed to be, but for the struggling readers, like, how do you really help them and give them that voice and choice when they need more assistance?
I think that is a really great question, Melissa, because I think about, when we think about like inquiry learning or project-based learning, a lot of people see it as like higher level thinking, and then it helps with that, yes, but they also use that as like, well, if you're the gifted kids, then you can do this, or if you are already an independent learner, you can do this, or like, so like if they're not there yet, then they're not ready for it. But then it's like, who's going to take the time to work with these kids to help them become independent, and how are they learning that through doing these inquiries, or are they doing it something else? Then they can do the inquiries. And I think that I just lost my train of thought.
Not just me.
Higher level. Live camera.
I'll just build off of it.
Yes. Well, okay. So it's I think that it's not something separate. So I think that when we're thinking about, you know what, I'm gonna come back to me. Someone else can go. It'll
I
come.
want to build off of you, Carlie. So,
Anna.
especially in the special ed, I mean, these kids are considered the lowest of the lowest learners. So, really, what's frustrating is seeing the kids that are the struggling learners that aren't special ed yet, I guess, for lack of a better way to say it, and how they really don't get any voice or choice because they're being told, again with the choice words, that even if you're not directly saying it, they're being told that they can't do this higher level thinking. They can't handle book clubs because they can't read at this level. But I think those are the kids, like, you should still be giving the same voice and choice you are to your other learners, but those are the kids you are going to be conferencing and reflecting with the most on their academics and how, was this book too hard? Why was it too hard? Like, do you want to challenge yourself again in this way, or do you want to maybe pick something lower? Like, what strategies could you have used? And, like, really reflecting on those pieces to give them that, I guess, ownership of their learning as well as that self-awareness, which will really ties into that metacognition and building their stamina and, like, just, I think when we think about voice and choice, yeah, we can give them choices in what they read and what how they practice their learning, but I think the biggest piece is that reflection and that conferencing with those students more often to, even if it's as a small group, just to really dig into what's happening when you're reading and how can I help you as a teacher and how can you help yourself as a learner. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And, like, that's something that we did, like, in the beginning of the year when we were starting our book clubs. And it was like the kids picked their own books and it was great. They were having good discussions, but then you, like, see their progress and they really weren't making any. So it was just kind of like, how can I better do this so they do have that voice and choice, because they deserve to have that voice and choice as much as any other kid does. It doesn't matter if they're where they're supposed to be or not. So it just, I like what you said, like with conferencing more one-on-one or with a group with them about using their strategies and implementing those better.
Yeah, and I think that just that big self-awareness piece and, like, when you is, like, key to that voice and choice. And voice and choice alone in itself is communication. So usually our students who are struggling readers have the hardest time communicating verbally, which ties into the reading and the writing and whatever. That's all connected. So I think just being able to communicate verbally with them and, like, have that conversation, it's going to build their awareness and really tie into that reading. And then voice and choice will come naturally.
Yay! I feel like I don't know, just being in middle school, like, literacy and reading is just very different and, like, still a priority, but, like, we're not dealing with beginning readers, and, like, at this point it's a lot of just comprehension and fluency and, like, reading, getting up there to those, like, really higher level texts and understandings and that kind of thing. So, this is a conversation our team just had a couple days ago. Actually, it's something that we probably weren't as successful with this year, trying to, like, integrate how does like, some of these literacy concepts fit into the project process, and how do, like, our kids find value in it. So I guess that's kind of a different conversation entirely, but that's something we're still working on. But let's see. Long story short, right now we have, like, a separate literature project from the regular projects the kids work on, and students with IEPs or not are all working towards them. Like, so they still meet the same whatever standards, they just receive additional support or, like, supplemental instruction to that and that kind of thing. So, yeah, different conversation, but
Yep.
yep, change the topic.
I also think, though, when you're thinking about students as readers and what you're implementing and how your instructional pieces tie in, you really just need to think about what's the purpose and how is it going to get them, how is it going to benefit them and help them grow as a learner. So I think really focusing in on that reflection piece, that communication piece is going to be what builds their reading.
Mhm.
I don't know. I mean, that's just my opinion, but I think that's what kids need
Mhm.
before they can't really get into those higher level texts, which don't get me started on the purpose of that. But I don't know. I mean, if it's already your plan for next year to really focus on conferencing, maybe that's what's tied in there is really seeing how those lower readers grow due to your thing and your conversations and reflections about it. And I think as teachers, we just have to remember to let the process happen and just to take our time with it.
And I think like just a personal goal of mine too, focused around literacy, is just to help like create more of a culture of reading for a love of reading with my students, which like they, I don't know, each of our mentor groups are vastly different, and there are a couple of groups at our school that like love reading and they have conversations with their teacher about books all the time, and that's just definitely not my group. So I think, I mean, that alone, just helping them find relevance and purpose in reading as a middle schooler and beyond, where like just the focus on reading is different than it is in elementary school, and it's just, it comes up differently in the classroom. So I think that, and like you said, Anna, like conferencing would lend itself really well to continuing that conversation.
And I think being as the teacher, you have to be the biggest learner in the room, but you also have to let that passion for reading show. Because how can you expect kids to be passionate about reading and enjoy reading if you're just like doing it to get it done? And I think conversations in that culture of reading, that is an excellent frame of mind to go in with and just really be excited about what kids are reading and like and having conversations, being a part of those book club conversations as passionately as we can.
I feel like that's something too, like showing them the passion is like they should see everybody else reading. Like it's just like, if where's the time? You know, like that's a struggle. Like, I'm supposed to be conferencing with kids, but really I should be reading with them.
Like I see often we have our independent reading time and then the teacher's checking their email. It's like, well, that doesn't really show or model what's expected during independent reading time, or even that, you know, this could be an enjoyable time and it's enjoyable to me, and here's the book I'm reading and I would love to have a conversation with you about it. But if we're not modeling it and we're not passionately teaching it, then kids are going to see that and they're just not, struggling readers or not, it's going to make the difference.
There's a book called, I think it's called Reading Wild. Yes. Have you read it?
No, but I know of it. I think we have it at school, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I know I have it. So if anyone wants to borrow it, you can. I haven't read it, but I read the back of it, and it sounds fantastic. So
next book club book, Carlie.
No, I already know our next book club book. Nomad Society.
What is it?
Nomad Society. He's on Twitter. Everybody follow him. It's a great book.
Okay.
So
we'll have to write this stuff down.
Yes. Yep. All right. So question number 5. This is our last question. It's kind of like a wrap up. What is your biggest takeaway from this year? So kind of thinking about the things we just talked about and reflecting on your whole year, what is your biggest takeaway? Crickets.
I think this is the longest we've been quiet in the whole phone.
Yeah, I need some face time, Carlie, okay?
Well, okay.
Well, I think part of my biggest takeaway is you guys and being able to maintain our friendship from last year and being student teachers and reflecting on the whole school year together, and then maintaining what we're doing now together, meeting, like getting together every month, even if it's just for fun, but just having, people in my life that are feeling the same way I'm feeling and are easy to talk to and really understand what's going on, because I guess I just don't feel like I get that at school either a lot. Like I said, collaboration is one thing I want to work on, and I really don't feel like it happened at all this year, and I think that's part of where I lost my motivation and my passion. It's because I wasn't, actively talking about kids and how to meet my philosophy with kids, and like even reflecting on it verbally aloud with somebody. It was a challenge. So I think you guys are my biggest takeaway, and as well as just like thinking about what can I do better next year and how can I grow is my biggest takeaway, and knowing that there's room for growth and I can grow and I can get to where I want to be. It's just going to be a slow process, which is hard to be okay with, but just admitting that, I didn't do exactly what I wanted this year. When I came into the field, I'm not where I wanted to be, but I can get there, and that's okay.
I think my biggest takeaway is just continuing to have conversations with people. Because I think, like, in my head, sometimes I'm just like, it's just easier to just not talk about it, and then that turns into not caring, which turns into just flowing, going with the flow. And then that's not beneficial to anyone. So I think just continuing to do things that get me excited about education, like stuff like this. Like, I love these video podcasts. I love like facilitating Twitter chats and talking to people on Voxer. So like continuing to do those things and having conversations with not only like the people in my building and my team, but people like you guys and other people in other platforms to keep us going. So I think that's my biggest takeaway.
I would add to mine that larger scale sense, continuing to try to attend like conferences that really get you talking to other educators all over, and like your Twitter chats and podcasts and things like this. Just, it gives you a sense of purpose, and I think that's what we need, especially with the philosophies we have and how sometimes they're viewed isn't the best, and the way people talk to them about it, like, do you know what I mean? I don't know how to phrase that, but just things in a larger sense to give us that sense of purpose when we go back into the classroom and keep up that passion alive.
Yeah, I think it becomes detrimental when you get sucked into a little hole of, like, isolation. Like, Anna, I agree that I hope you do find people in your district or building or whatever that you can connect with next year, but also, like, I think it's dangerous if that's your only source of, like, reflection and, brainstorming and that kind of stuff, because those small groups create such a culture and, like, mindset together. Like, I find that when I reflect with you guys versus the people on my team, like, they're both very productive for very different reasons, because I think what we talk about and, like, our frame of mind is just colored by the people that we're with, or like, that kind of thing. So when I reflect with my team, we do talk about, like, different things than we talk about, and I already know how they lean on some things, but I know that you guys lean differently on other things, and just, like, different groups for different purposes and that kind of thing. I think my takeaway too is that nothing is permanent. So as, like, frustrating or, like, challenging as the year seems, like, at no point could I have not, like, tried something new, scrapped something that wasn't working. Even though we feel like there are all these hoops that we have to jump through, and asking for permission to do certain things, or, like, certain expectations of us and things that we have to accomplish. Like, if something's not working, it's not working. And I think that's also what I'm just excited about for next year, is being able to start over and having a sort of clean slate and having a whole year of experience to understand, like, what this is really about and, like, what works and what doesn't, and trying again, even though I'll fail again, but at least I get to try again. Like,
No such thing as failure. It's only a growth opportunity, right?
yeah.
Go, yo.
I think just knowing, like, in 3 months, your kids are going to be, especially because we're all multi-age, they're going to be a little more mature. They're going to be, and then you're getting a new group in. Like, it's going to change the dynamic, which means you change your dynamic and you change with them. And I think that's exciting in and of itself that, I mean, change happens and, like, nothing is permanent and you can grow. And, I mean, take what you learned this year and bring it back next year, but with a different frame of mind, with different kids, with different personalities and all that. Like, that's exciting.
I feel like my biggest takeaway was as well just knowing that it's okay to share your ideas, that things can be done differently than they have been done in the past, and being able to share pieces of my philosophy as well as different ideas. I feel like that really helped because my team fortunately was receptive to different ideas, and we would be able, even though it wasn't exactly the way I envisioned my ideas going, that they were receptive to it and we were able to tweak it and at least try parts of it. So that was my biggest takeaway, was just trying different things and being allowed to try different things.
Yeah.
All right. Well, and you want to say something else before I wrap up?
No, I was just going to say there's lots of, like, learning that happened this year, and now, like, I don't know, just things to keep in mind for next steps for next year, whether, I mean, for me, I think it's, like, finding more ways to do things like this and really maintaining that throughout the year instead of, like, doing it, every now and then. Like, just really making sure I'm still filling my passion. I don't know.
Well, we should really start our own hashtag.
We should.
So it's CIE.
Sure.
Let's just. It's already started. It's already
What is
started. Start having chats.
It's done.
All right. But you heard it here first on the Dr. Will Show. CIE chat is coming. It stands for Connected Innovation Empowers. It's going to be great. All right. Anyway, so thank you all. Thank you, Melissa, Anna, Katie, for joining and suffering the torture of me doing my first hosting of a podcast. So thank you, and thank you everyone for watching another episode of Dr. Will Show. And I'm Carlie Stigler, and as always, be you, EDU.